Let's take a look at how to install Anypoint Runtime Fabric, which is a container service specialized for running Mule. Note that all this information is included in our documentation site at docs.mulesoft.com. First, a quick overview of the hardware and network requirements. There are a couple of supported configurations. On the left, we have a development configuration, which consists of a minimum of one controller node and two worker nodes. A controller node is a VM that runs all the services needed to power Runtime Fabric, such as the internal load balancer, whereas a worker node is a VM that's used to run your mules. On the right, we have a production configuration that's made up of a minimum of 3 controller nodes and 3 worker nodes. This configuration is optimized for high availability, which is important for running in a production environment. Now, there are some specific requirements you'll need for these two types of nodes, and you may need to work with your operations and network teams to meet those requirements before installing. Here's what's happening behind the scenes when running the installation. There are two components, a setup script and an environment file. The same setup script runs on each VM, and the environment file has variables which tell the setup script what to do. This env file is unique for each VM because it contains information like its IP address. During installation, one of the controller nodes will lead the installation, and the other nodes will join the leader, pull down the required files, and form a cluster. And again, all this behavior is sourced from that environment file on each of those VMs. To get started, first we'll create a Runtime Fabric and Anypoint Runtime Manager. If you don't see this, reach out to your Customer Success Manager or Account Executive to learn how to get enabled. Next, we'll go ahead and download the install scripts. Inside, you'll find a couple of directories which provide templates for easy provisioning and installing Runtime Fabric on AWS and on Azure. For a manual installation, we'll go ahead and copy this link and download and unzip it directly on a VM configured to be a controller node. Each of these steps and commands are in the documentation. Next, we'll use a script in the manual directory that helps generate that env file for each of the VMs we'll install Runtime Fabric on. This script requires information like the IP address for each VM and the device paths for the disks required per the hardware requirements. If your company network requires a proxy to enable outbound connectivity to the internet, you'll need to include that information in this step. This script outputs a command that will run on each VM to create that env file with the specific variables it needs in order to install Runtime Fabric and form a cluster. We'll also copy over the setup script on the scripts directory on each of the VMs in the same directory as the env file. Lastly, we'll run the setup script on each VM to kick off the installation. After the installation completes, we'll run a command to verify the cluster has been formed successfully, and we should be able to see a Runtime Fabric ready for use on Anypoint Runtime Manager.